This is the TicTacToe project. Hopefully you know how to play TicTacToe. The idea behind this project is that we're going to be playing TicTacToe using commands down here in the console. So at the beginning of this, I've got a basic TicTacToe set up here, this class, in a project in my workspace. Main is going to cause problems if we try and put everything into here. It turns out static. It doesn't allow us to use global variables, which we're going to want in this particular project. So I'm going to make sure I get out of that really fast. I'm going to do that by creating a new TicTacToe. And what that does is it calls this command here, public TicTacToe. This is the constructor for this class. I can then use global variables out here. So this command calls this one here, and this section can use global variables. Whenever you create a new one of these TicTacToe things, then you're allowed to use it. So global variable, what does that mean? I'm going to be creating multiple methods besides static void main. I'm going to be checking for wins, checking for ties, and those are going to go down here. If I create variables inside of TicTacToe or inside of static void main, these methods down here can't see them. And so I'm going to need to make sure that I have some variables that everyone in this class can use. In particular, one of the things I like to have is a board. Now my board is going to have 3 rows and 3 columns. So I'm going to use an array, which is 3 by 3. So it's a 2-dimensional array. The way I declare that is using these square braces. So I say the kind of thing it's going to contain, and then square brackets for each of the dimensions. So I'm going to call this a board. And I happen to know it's going to be 3 by 3, so I'll just go ahead and create it here. So I'm going to create a new one of these int arrays with 3 in the rows, 3 in the columns. You can actually interpret the rows and columns either way, as long as you're consistent throughout your code. By default, all of these have zeros in them. So integers, floats, all those sorts of things have zeros. Chars have whatever the 0 character is in ASCII. And Boolean start is false. So next I probably should make something that actually prints out the board. So I'm actually going to create another method down here which does that. The way you call a method is you use its name and open and close parentheses. Eventually we're also going to put something in the parentheses, but print board isn't going to require that. So it's complaining because it doesn't know what print board is because we haven't created that method. Let's go ahead and do that now. Public void print board. All right, what do these words mean? Public. So if you have a public method, that means that everyone can use it. So if I add some other methods in or other projects in my Eclipse here, they can actually use print board now as well if they want to. If I said private, what that would mean is that only TicTacToe itself can use this. So these other projects out here wouldn't be able to use print board. There's another one yet called protected. Protected means that if I have other things in this folder here where the TicTacToe project is, they could use it, but things outside of that would not be able to. The vast majority of the time for the projects we're making, public is just fine. It really starts to matter when you get into larger software projects. Void. Okay, so I'm not returning anything. Later on I am going to return something other than void, but if you're not going to give anything back, then you can just say void here. You return the void. There's also nothing in the parentheses because I'm not passing anything in. I just want it to print out whatever board has in it. Okay, so I'm going to want to go through my entire board and basically print out what's inside of there. So to begin with, let's see if I can print out 1, 2, 3 across the top and ABC along the side. So I need to somehow output things to the terminal. So I'm going to use sysout, and control space is the shortcut for that. Or I could type out system.out.println. And here, what I'm going to put in is I'm going to do a space and then a tab, and then 1, 2, 3 with tabs in between them. So a tab, if I hit tab, it actually tabs over. That doesn't help me. I actually want to put the tab character in. So I'm actually going to use backslash, the thing above the enter key on most keyboards, T. This combination here means a tab. There's some other characters you can put in. So \n is a return. If you want a backslash, it's \\. If you want a quote, \quote. So there's a number of things that you can actually put into strings that you can't really type into a string, but this is the way that you put in a tab. So in a tab 1, tab 2, tab 3. So let's see what happens here. So if I run this, all right, so I've got 1, 2, 3. Good. So now I need the ABC across the bottom. I'm going to be doing this for each row, so I'm going to go ahead and use a for loop for that. I'm going to do control space on that to iterate through the whole thing. Iterate basically means go through one at a time. So I'm going to start at 0. Let me change this variable to maybe row. Notice that when I first type this in, it changes row here, here, and here. That's very useful. If you come back later on, you'll actually have to manually change all 3 of those spots. So I'm going to start row at 0. I want it to keep going while it's less than board's length. So board.length tells me how many things there are in this dimension. Adds 1 to row each time we go through. For now, I'm just going to create a string output and have it just say A initially, and then maybe a tab. And then I'm just going to print out output down here. I'm doing this on purpose because eventually in between these two, I'm going to put in what's in them between them. All right, 1, 2, 3, AA. So I have rows and columns, and eventually I need to put in this thing in the board. All right, so how do I actually make it print things out in the board? Well, my plan is I'm going to make it so that if there's a 0 in there, I'm just going to put in a blank, so nothing's going to be there. If I put in a 1 in my int in my board, that's going to be an X. A 2 is going to be an O. Now I could actually just say every time there's a 0 on the board, put in a blank, but that's actually going to be kind of tricky to remember, especially if I come back to my code later on, like a month later, and go, wait, what was a 1, what was a 2? So I'm going to use something called a constant to make this a little easier. I use the keyword final, and then basically define a variable. It's convention in Java to use all caps, so all capital letters for the name of it, and that helps to signify a constant. So I'm going to make a blank, the keyword blank equals 0. So I also should do the x1. I'm going to call this xMove. It's going to be a 1. And OMove is going to be a 2. So now when I'm checking to see if x is there or O is there, I'm going to use the keyword OMove, which is a lot more descriptive than is it a 2. Because if I don't remember which one is a 1 and a 2, it'll make it harder. All right, so down here, how do I print things out? So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go through each column and check to see what's there. I'm going to do another for loop, and I think I'm going to call this column. And this is going to go through board 0's length. So I'm going to go through the first dimension's length. All right, so I'm going to say if board row column, these are variables that are going to change over time. So it's going to go through each one, is a blank, 2 equal signs and an if statement, easiest thing on earth to screw up. Then I'm going to take output and add onto it a space and a tab. So at the moment, when I do this, notice that there are spaces and tabs here if I highlight it.